let's get right into this. So what we're going to do today, before just to give you a flavor for what's going on today, is I want to share some of the final thoughts that are at the end of the book. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about what holds us back from boldly declaring, courageously pursuing, and abundantly achieving the extraordinary. And then what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit more about this on the court site that we're creating. We're so excited, especially for like a smaller community like ours right now. People who are on this call, you've hung out with us for 5 weeks, and you've come back for the bonus session, and we've created this thing just for you. So we want to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain beyond what we've talked about in the past. Okay, but before we get into that, I just want to mention a couple of things. Let me just very quickly see who we have with us. Okay, very good. Monroe and Ali, Fiaz is here. Okay, Fran, thank you. Haya, thank you. Keith, there are a lot of folks. There is actually a special guest. You're all special, but one of you is like extra special today, and that is my dear brother, Ali. And he is special every day, but today he is even more special because it's his birthday. So happy birthday, brother. And great to have you. Anyway, it's great to have all of you with us. What I'd like to open up with, and again, I want you to get into this mode of this is an interactive session. Okay, this is not some kind of lecture or anything like that. So I have plenty of stuff to talk about, but I'd really love to hear from you. And let's sort of mold this conversation to fit whatever you want to talk about, okay? And so to that extent, what I'd like to do is kind of start off with some victory stories. What, over the course of 5-6 weeks, you've tried different things and you've had some victories. So it always is helpful to share the good news with others. And I know you don't want to brag and stuff like that. That's not what this is all about. What this is about is giving others encouragement that says, hey, you know what? I tried this and it really worked. So what kind of victory stories do you have? Share those with us. If you want to share those via video or audio, again, let us know in the chat. We'll open the line. If not, we'll welcome your comments in the chat as well. So let's see what we got. And while we're waiting for that, actually, so we'll wait for you to kind of let us know, give us a signal in the chat box, either by typing your comments or letting us know if you want to join us by audio or video. Also think about all the OPLs that we've gone through and the different things, the 1-point lessons that we've gone through. Is there anything that stands out as something you want to dig a little bit deeper in? Maybe an open issue, maybe you've tried it, but something didn't quite work out right, and you say, well, how do you deal with this? And I'm hoping to just kind of really get this conversation going within the community here, so we can share. All right? Yeah, as Naveed mentions, you can also raise your hand, and we'll come to you as well. Okay. I guess I didn't give you guys the forewarning that this was going to be an interactive session, right? So you might be thinking, should I really say something or should I make a comment? And the answer to that question is yes, you should. You know, I tell you what, I'll give you one thing that I really value about this community while we're waiting for your comments. So this week, I feel like we are just at the end of this series, and all those other things that we've done, Destined to Thrive, and all these other sessions that we've done, I feel like we're getting to that place where we finally got our setup right. You know, I got some really, really good feedback from one of our participants. I don't think she would mind me saying. It was Jill, who's been with us for these sessions. And she told me, she said, look, I really liked the last week's session that you were standing and you weren't so close to the screen and it wasn't a close-up of your head. And so this time I modified the setup a little bit just to kind of build on that. So I'm not right in front of the screen, but I've got another screen over here where I've got the comments and all of that. So I think we're getting this together, and that's the beauty of community. So I really appreciate the feedback from Jill, who has expertise in this field as well as other things as well, setting up virtual spaces and stuff like that. So I really appreciate that. And this is the kind of feedback that I think we can get when you're part of a community. So it's really great. Sarah has a question here, or comment. Good morning, Sarah. Any advice on culture shifting while transitioning through a merger and restaffing? Oh boy, that's one topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've been involved in several of those, and I can tell you, when it comes to mergers, you simply have to recognize that you're bringing not just two cultures together, but several subcultures that behave differently, perceive the world differently. And so I tell you, one merger that I was involved in, actually I got there about 3 years after it had happened. Procter & Gamble had bought a plant from Scott Paper Company, and for 3 years they really didn't do anything to sort of merge the cultures, if you will. And after 3 years they brought in a plant manager, and she brought me in ultimately, and my responsibility was to sort of integrate a lot of the systems and behaviors and that sort of thing. And one of the things I immediately noticed was that while the Procter & Gamble people were speaking English and the Scott Paper were speaking English, I had to translate from English to English because they didn't have any idea what the other was saying. So understanding each of those subcultures is extremely important. And the other thing I think that's important is make sure that it's not a situation where we're saying, listen, you guys were acquired by us and everything's going to be exactly the way we say. No, we are creating a third culture that is going to take the best of each of these cultures and it's going to merge it into something. So openly talk about those things and invite people to the table, because I think in merger situations there are going to be always a group of people or some groups of people who are kind of standing on the sidelines saying, hey, you know what, I don't think these guys really want to hear what I have to say anyway. So there's a lot that we can say relative to transitioning through a merger, but it has to start with open dialogue about the differences, so that we can identify what we're going to keep and what we're going to change. And some of those changes people may not like, but you know what? We all know how to deal with things that we don't like in life. But if we keep them in limbo and lead them to believe that things are going to change this way and they don't, then that causes frustration. But if we talk about it openly, then I think we can say, yeah, you know what, this is actually not going to be our future. This is the way we're going. And people can accept some of that and then get on with it. So Sarah, thank you so much for that question. I appreciate it. Any other questions or comments from our community this morning? You guys are a little bit quiet this morning. Okay. Victory stories, anybody? I know you've shared a few of those in the past. Okay, so while you guys are thinking, all right, Sarah, my pleasure. I appreciate it. So let me just get right into the final thoughts that I wanted to share from the Transformative Leader. Because remember, at the beginning, what we talked about was really that a workplace where the people in the workplace consider their job to be a source of inspiration and source of prosperity will always do better. And it impacts them at work and at home. And so a lot of what is in this book really aims to cause people to see something for themselves so that they can transform their lives outside of work and at work. Okay? But in the final thoughts, I share a few things that just kind of distills the learnings into a few points. So I'd like to read from page 207 just a little bit of this for you here. It says here, ideally, the combination of how I have presented the ideas and how you have processed them has resulted in you recognizing that leadership is not nearly as complicated as we make it out to be. In fact, it is fairly simple, and it comes down to the following. So I've got these 7 points here that I want to cover very quickly. So the first thing is your 100% commitment to a cause that inspires you. So you see, most of our effort and energy is spent on dealing with whatever we got to deal with. And you know what? That's appropriate. You've got to deal with whatever's right in front of you. If something urgent is right in front of you, you got to deal with it, and that's great. But remember, we always talked about you ought to have at least one thing, whether it's personally or professionally, that you're going for, that you are actually going to be excited about, to make happen. So declare that bold future and be 100% committed to it. Remember, we talked about 100% commitment versus partial and conditional commitment. So the first thing is your 100% commitment to a cause that inspires you. The second thing is your willingness to declare yourself the one, right? If it's to be, it's up to me, who is going to make a difference. I am the one. Are you taking full responsibility? The third point is your courage to be humble and look inward for what's getting in the way of progress. And I say this word courage because looking inward is a scary thing sometimes. It really is a courageous act to look at yourself. It's easy to look at everybody else and all the barriers that are in front of you. But sometimes it's hard to look at yourself, to say, in what way am I sabotaging myself, right? Number 4 on page 208 says your awareness of the automatic thought patterns and attitudes that are holding you back. So these are some of the things like that little voice in the back of your head, or the fact that your commitments are not 100%, or the fact that sometimes you just speak things into existence without really knowing it. And so these hidden saboteurs, if you're aware of them, then you're likely going to have a better chance of conquering those things. Number 5 of 7, your intentionality to consistently make course corrections in your behavior. Intentionality to make course corrections. So that means if I'm going down a path and it's not working, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and I'm going to call time out and say, in what way can I do that better? I'm not going to feel bad about it or give up on the whole mission. I'm just going to change course, make some adjustments. Number 6, your knowledge of tools and methodologies that increase your effectiveness as a leader. Now remember, the first 5 you can do as soon as you decide to do it. Now number 6, this is where the tools and methodologies come in. Yes, you need tools, you need methodologies, you need skills, you need systems. But you know what? If you do the first 5, you have a much better chance of getting the most out of these tools. And finally, number 7, your ability to use the tools and techniques in a context that fulfills your commitment. Don't just become an expert on, 7 different things. And it's wonderful if you have a lot of, letters at the end of your name, and I respect that. You worked hard for it. You got the skills. You got the knowledge. But are you able to apply that to some sort of a specific commitment that actually makes a difference for you and for the community that you're a part of? And so these 7 things that I mentioned on page 207 and 208 are, to me, are very critical because if you just kind of set aside your notion that leadership is hard and it's difficult and there's so many moving parts and all of that, and you just go down this list and say, you know what, I'm going to take the Forrest Gump approach. You guys know Forrest Gump perhaps, right? You might have seen the movie. I read the book as well. In the book he goes to the moon. How can somebody who is clearly not all that intelligent accomplish so much? because he wasn't overthinking stuff, right? He was just doing things, making it happen. Now, you're much better off than Forrest Gump because you all obviously have intelligence to go along with that tenacity. But if you just basically declare something, commit yourself, and look at yourself to see what you need to do differently, stay on the course, and when things are not changing, working, changing your ways, these 7 things, it will work for you. So it's not that complicated. Now, we've got a comment coming in here. So Terry says, I have a team of talented individuals who lead through influence without direct reports and work with people at all levels of our company. Do you have any specific tips for those who lead through influence? Oh, absolutely, Terry. Thank you so much for your comment here. Look, that is the training ground for leadership. For me, in various parts of my career, I've had either a bunch of people reporting to me, or I've had support roles where I had only 2 or 3 people reporting to me, but mostly I got my work done through influence. And so what I would say is that, first of all, it is important to create the right context for those people, to say, look, you know what, if you're ever going to be a really great leader, this is your training grounds right now, because you don't have that stick in your back pocket that you can pull out and make people do stuff. This is your opportunity to get better at influencing. Then one of the things that I would share with them is this whole technology of influencing people. And I have a training session that I do on how to gather support and influence others. And it's all about making sure that, first of all, you cause them to be energized about a certain future, and then asking them, making a powerful request. So there are a number of things. And Terry, what I'm happy to do as well is send you some information on this, point you in the direction of a couple of blog posts I've done on this, and a couple of different things that we have in our tool bag, if you will, to do that. There are things like delegation. How can we effectively delegate? So there are a number of skills, as well as just the overall context, that would help those folks really do well. But I congratulate you for being in that situation where people are leading by influence. I mean, you're obviously in a really good spot to grow leaders and make some things happen. John, also, thank you so much, John. And again, thanks, Terry. Supporting comment on influence. Treat everyone as a volunteer. I love it. I absolutely love this. There was a quote, I don't remember the author, the best leaders are at voluntary organizations because no one has to be there. They can leave at any time. And this is a wonderful comment. In fact, yesterday I was reading a comment from a friend of mine who's also a leadership expert, and he works mostly with the frontline employees. His name is Max Story. And he said in this post, he said, I often ask leaders, how much do you pay your volunteers? And they're like, well, we don't have any volunteers, we just have employees. And that is when Mac sort of makes his point around, well, they're all volunteers, actually. They have chosen to be here. You see, just because we give them a paycheck, that doesn't mean that they're not volunteers. They could go work somewhere else. So I love this point, John. Treat people like volunteers. They don't owe you their full commitment. They owe you compliance. Yes, you pay them some amount of money, and they owe you a certain amount of compliance. But we all know that compliance, just doing the minimum, is not going to cut it. If you want to be extraordinary, treat them as volunteers. And I absolutely love that approach. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for those comments. Okay, so I'll read just another little piece from this. It says, we have the tendency, on page 208, we have the tendency to think someone bigger and better than us ought to be the one. We tend to look out there for problems and solutions rather than within ourselves. Our automatic thoughts and destructive attitudes have been with us for so long that we think they are part of who we are. We mistake our thoughts about ourselves as ourselves. I have this saying that says, I think, therefore I think I am who I think I am. Well, I have good news for you. You're not who you think you are. You might think that, oh, I'm not capable of this, I'm not capable of that, I remember failing or whatever. That's not who you are. Yes, you may have had a setback, but don't think of yourself as that. And so we make course corrections in our behavior, but after a few tries, we begin to make ourselves or other people wrong and give in. Again, page 208. Unfortunately, the world we live in and our education system is designed by default to perpetuate these tendencies rather than cultivate more productive ones. So this is where you've got to, again, go back to, if you can't run, walk. Do whatever you can with whatever you have. And things will continue to get better for you. So start where you are and do what you can. So, again, keep the conversation going if you've got any comments or questions, and we'll address as many of those as we possibly can. I want to switch gears though. Again, we're just going to put the book down, and again, I want to just say thank you so much for participating in the book study. I would invite you to continue to go back to some of these lessons, because they will show up differently for you in different points of your life. And we have a lot of testimonies from people who have said they have read and reread this stuff, because when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right? So there are a few things I want to share with you about what gets in the way of boldly declaring, courageously pursuing, and abundantly achieving the extraordinary. Okay, so I have like 8 things for each one of these. I won't go over all of them, but some things to think about. What is holding you back from boldly declaring something? And see if any of these resonate with you. We have a fear of failure. That one is clear, right? We've all had this fear of failure at some point. You know what? I don't want to declare something really big because I don't want to end up failing and looking bad. And so that's that one. But one that may not be so intuitive is we have a fear of success. We have a fear of success. Because if you have set the thermostat of your life at 72 degrees, it's just like the thermostat on your AC says, look, it's getting too hot. We got to bring this temperature down. Or if it's getting too cold, we're going to bring the temperature up. Where have you set the thermostat for yourself, for the level of success that you deserve and you want to have? The level of fulfillment that you want to have? The kind of relationship you want to be in? The kind of material possessions you want to have? Whatever area of your life, where have you actually set that thermostat? Because what happens is, yes, there's fear of failure in declaring something really bold, but the lack of that declaration by default sets the bar really low. And the second you go above that, you begin subconsciously thinking, wait a minute, I don't deserve that kind of success. I think I've been fooling these people. Or wow, this relationship is going really well. I think something must be wrong. And you begin to sabotage yourself to bring yourself back. So it's really, really important to make that declaration, so you not only deal with the fear of failure, but you also deal with the fear of success. What else is holding us back from boldly declaring? And again, if any of these resonate with you, please comment and let us know. We've been conditioned to underpromise and overdeliver. I don't want to overpromise and then look bad. So underpromise, and then what happens is we begin to sort of shrink to that level. This one is really big for me. We lack integrity and can't count on our actions to line up with our words. Right? So if you know yourself to be a person of integrity, when I declare something, when I say something, I do it to the best of my ability. And if I fall short, then I clean it up and I make a new declaration. If you know yourself to be that kind of person, you're much more likely to take your own declaration seriously and follow through. But if you know yourself as a person who cannot be counted on, then your own declarations won't make a difference for you. right? So that's the other one. Also, 100% commitment versus 50-50. If you're 50-50 committed, it's like, look, I'm not going to be committed to it anyway, so I'm not going to boldly declare it. Next one is that we create from the past and the present as opposed to the future that we desire. If you think of your current circumstances and all of a sudden you want to boldly declare something, you might say, oh, wait a minute, I don't have the means, I don't have the resources, look at where I've been, look at where I am, I'm even lucky to be here. So you're less likely to make a bold declaration than if you were to take a different approach, to say, clean slate, if I were to design my life, what would I like it to be like? And that is coming from a clean slate, defining the future, and then looking back from there. And I guess the last one that I will mention is that we let our reasons guide our declarations. Whatever area of life, whether it's your health or your finances or your relationships or your career advancement, whatever it is, when you don't want to boldly declare something, and if I ask you, why, what's in the way? So in fact, let's just do that for a second. If I could just get you to participate with me for a second. What are some things that hold you back from making bold declarations? Let's get on with this chat now. Let me see a few answers. What generally holds you back from making a bold declaration? Let's see them coming. Fear of failure, okay? Feeling very overwhelmed with all the daily chaos, got it? Procrastination, okay? Things I don't control, okay? So much easier to go with the flow. How others will perceive me, definitely fear of failure. I get it. Hey, thank you. Thanks so much. Assuming my ideas will get shot down, okay? So let me just pick one of these, and thank you so much for participating here. So Sarah, if you don't mind, I'll take yours, right? Erfia says not living up to standards and keeping a work-life balance. So Sarah, I'll take yours if you don't mind. Assuming my ideas will get shot down, right? So if that is the case, if I ask you, why don't you do it? Why don't you boldly declare something? You would say, because my ideas are going to get shot down anyway. And that may be true. Your past experience may have told you that, and you now have made a conclusion, and now I'm not going to boldly declare. But here's the thing. That is the reason, right? If that is the reason, then be unreasonable. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you completely ignore that reason. It just means you acknowledge it. You say, that is my reason. And you act anyway. And after a while, you'll see that all of these reasons that you have come from your past experience. And your past experience cannot continue to define you if you want to be a transformative leader. You've simply got to acknowledge that and move forward. And that is what I'm calling being unreasonable. I acknowledge the reason, I move forward anyway. Okay? So, anything else on what holds us back from from boldly declaring? If you have any other comments on this topic, put it down. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next part, which is courageously pursuing, right? Because there's 3 parts to this. So 8 things, and I'll cover a few of these, that hold us back from courageously pursuing. So the first thing is we rely on evidence in front of us rather than our faith in the outcome to determine if we should stay in action. So if you're looking for the evidence right in front of you, there's usually plenty of evidence, especially if you're being transformative, that says this is not going to work and here's why. So you stop courageously pursuing, right? You just kind of retreat and that's that. The size of the prize doesn't justify our trouble. That's the other thing that holds us back from doing that. And so, from courageously pursuing, because you say, look, I got to go through all of this just to get this. You know, if what you've declared is not all that exciting to you, the size of the prize is not that big, you're like, it's not worth it. I'm just not even going to pursue this. I'm going to let it go. But when you boldly declare something, then it automatically helps you courageously pursue it because it's worth it. 100% commitment shows up again. Why do we stop courageously pursuing? Because we're simply not committed. And you know, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they said, you know what? One of the really great things about this 100% commitment is that sometimes you just find out you're not committed, and you declare it, and you set yourself free. I'm like, amen, that's really great. It's okay to do that. It is honorable to get yourself out of something that you've been 50-50 committed to, and you just declared, look, I'm not committed to this anymore. Yeah, John says perfectionism. Yeah, absolutely. You know, there was a saying that says done is better than perfect, right? But sometimes we want to be perfect, and we don't even get started, or we don't pursue something. Next thing that keeps us from courageously pursuing is we are attached to how it ought to go, as opposed to focusing on how, actually making progress. We're attached to how it ought to go and how much progress we should have made by now. I've done X, Y, and Z. I should have made this much progress. Maybe so, but you know what? You haven't. So what are you going to do now? You know, I've been leading a healthy lifestyle for the last 6 months, but I haven't lost all the weight that I wanted to lose. So what's the answer? Is it going back to eating Twinkies all day? No. Having a healthy lifestyle is a good thing to do, whether you got the results or not. So hang in there for a little while longer. Instead of being attached to it, be committed to the outcome. And we use our failures as an excuse to stop trying. I mean, this is one of those things where, yeah, we want others to feel sorry for us. We have this pity party and so on and so forth. And I'm not against you venting and just taking a day off sometimes, just kind of get everything together and all of that. But if you're going to use the failure as an excuse to get yourself out, then I'm not with that. But it happens. It happens to the best of us. We act on the urgent stuff, not the important stuff. And so if you're trying to courageously pursue something awesome, more than likely just doing the urgent stuff and not making time for the important stuff is just not going to get you there. And so that is a problem. And we've talked about drama versus passion. Keep the passion, ditch the drama, right? And so the reason you don't courageously pursue is because you're in the drama zone, not the passion zone. And finally, we keep our declarations to ourselves. And that keeps us from pursuing. If you have a goal that is like a really awesome goal that you're excited about, but you've kept it to yourself, the second you actually have one of these setbacks, it's so easy for you to say, you know what, I'll just give up on that. But if you've already declared it to a bunch of people, that's again the power of community. When you've declared it to other people, they're like, hey, how's that going? How much progress have you made? Hey, what's going on? Are you hanging in there? All right, awesome. Then you know what? You have a whole bunch of accountability partners. So let's hear from you. How many or what holds you back from courageously pursuing? In other words, what causes you to give up after you've made a bold declaration? What causes you to give up and just, not pursue whatever you need to pursue? So let me hear from some of you here on in chat. Need to declare to a community, as you mentioned. Yeah, exactly. having a community is so important. Look, as we wait for your comments, I just want to kind of throw this in. I've done a lot of leadership development in my days, different continents, different industries, and all of this. And the one thing that always, always, always makes a difference is that spirit of community. It's not just about knowledge transfer. It's about having a community behind you. Take a process like Weight Watchers, okay? Weight Watchers, and I'm not advocating for Weight Watchers versus some other service or whatever, but those kinds of places. It's not about getting on that scale. It's about having a community that cheers you on, that nudges you a little bit. It's about being accountable to a community and knowing they got your back. And so that spirit of community has always been such a big thing for me in leadership development. Excuses, yeah, Keith says excuses. Like working from home as a result of pandemic. Oh, I'm working from home, so I can't really get a lot of things done. Now, granted that you might have to change things around because some of those things are legitimate. I get it. But I could very easily use an excuse to say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything because of this. Old habits, reverting back to how I always have done things. Really great comments. Kim said that, yeah. And Nicole says, your point was well taken about making time for the important stuff and not just the urgent stuff. This prevents you from courageously pursuing, because once you get bogged down and lose focus on what you've declared, then that's it. So these are all the things that we've got to watch out for. And you have to get in touch with your own brand of what's holding you back from boldly declaring, what's holding you back from courageously pursuing, right? So these are all some generic stuff I'm sharing with you from experience, mind you, but you got to get in touch with what it is for you. Now, the final thing might be a little trickier. Because it's 8 things that hold you back from abundantly achieving. Okay? Because obviously... Yeah.
Before you keep going, I just wanted to let you know that Monroe has his hand raised and he's unmuted, so I think he wants to...
Oh, please. Yes. Thank you, Nassim. Monroe, please, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Amir.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I want everybody else, and happy birthday to your brother.
Thank you.
The one I want to comment on is that one of those learnings is that, based on what you were just mentioning, sometimes we don't realize how, as transformative leaders, we want to do so well. We have the position to lead, and sometimes what keeps you from that boldly declaring or just hanging in there is that I've done it before, where you drift into it's not necessarily my way, which discourages me. But I had to realize that it's not my way, it's trying to show others the way. And the best way to do that is always stay in touch with not just the information you have, but develop some kind of tool where some constant sensing, kind of like the gauges in your car. How much gas do I have? How far can I go? How fast can I go? And you got that constant feedback coming from other people out in the organization, so they end up being advocates for you. And it ties into that community piece that you did so well, just mentioning that it's not only just as a leader, it gives you a gauge of how you're doing, how many people are getting online, and they're out there spouting what you're doing and helping make that picture come possible.
That's beautiful, and I think this really ties in nicely with the influence conversation that we had before. Don't just kind of put the blinders on, say everything's got to be done my way, but be in touch with people, make your communication sort of receiver-based and be in their world so that you can adjust as you go and get them enrolled and energized. Thank you so much, Monroe. That was really great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we have a couple of other comments. So John is asking, what is your opinion on having a backup plan or alternative options? Some people design systems or alternatives so that even the worst case scenario is still a win or a good option. Some people only go all in on the objectives, and if they fail, then they are still in a better spot. So, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, still land among the stars. I think, for me personally, it's like you plan for the best, you hope for the best, and you plan for the worst. So sometimes if you have a backup plan, if you're the kind of person who says, look, if I have a backup plan, I'm not going to give my best, then you know what? I'm completely with you, because I know successful people in both camps. But I think it's important for you to get in touch with what kind of person you are. You know, before I became an entrepreneur and I was working for companies for 31 years, I had two friends of mine that I remember very vividly giving me advice on starting my own business. And one of them was adamant that you ought to just jump. And if you don't have a backup plan, you'll make it happen. And the other one was like, man, that is crazy. You need to build a bridge. You need to do some stuff to make sure that just in case this doesn't work out. So two very successful entrepreneurs giving me that advice. So I had to reconcile for myself what made sense to me. And I feel like I ended up with a hybrid plan. So the other thing I would say, John, I think this is a very important point, is that it depends on the consequences, right? Because if we have a plan to completely transform our pay system, let's just say, in the the system that actually pays people or whatever, right? And let's say we flip the switch and it doesn't work, and here comes payday and we have no way of paying people because it didn't work. You know what? In that case, you better have a backup plan, because the consequences are grave in that case, right? But in some cases, the consequences may be things that, hey, you know what, we can deal with that, we can move on. So it all depends on the person and the circumstance, but I completely understand your point and I appreciate your comment. Yeah. So, let me just, and Nassim, thanks for letting me know. I didn't have that visibility. It's right in front of me, but I didn't pay attention. So just let me know. Let me know anytime. So, what holds us back from abundantly achieving? And this is really important. Okay, the first thing is we don't think we deserve it. Just like I talked about that thermostat thing. How much happiness do you think you deserve? How about your finances? What about your health? What about the kind of relationship you want to be in? What do you think you deserve? And I'm not suggesting that you say, hey, you know what? I think I deserve to have a yacht. I think I'm going to go get a loan and buy one of those. No, don't do that. But the point is this: if you think you deserve a certain kind of relationship, then put the work into it. If you think you deserve a certain kind of financial freedom, then put the work into it so you can get there legitimately. So if you don't think you deserve it, this is where, and I bring up money because I think a lot of people sabotage themselves because they have these sort of underlying thoughts about money. Rich people are all bad and whatever else, right? And so the second I have a little bit of money, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be one of those rich people. And so that happens. Next thing is we are not grateful. Look, abundantly achieving, the final step in achieving anything is gratitude. Because I can have a lot of things, I can achieve a lot of things, but if I don't take the time to be grateful for it, I'm constantly running after something else. I will never be happy. So abundantly achieving, sort of the bookend on that, if you will, the capstone on it is gratitude. Taking time to be grateful. Next one is we are not content and always look for the next thing, which is part of that. So you can say, well, how can I boldly declare and be excited about something and be content at the same time? You know what? It's all in the paradox. It's there's a chapter in the book about different paradoxes. Look, I'm the one, it's not about me. It can happen. I'm content, but I'm excited about the future I'm creating. It can happen. We look to the finish line, not ongoing progress, to signify achievement. The reason you need to keep your eye on the finish line is to be excited about it, but celebrate the milestones. Don't just kind of lament every day, oh geez, I'm still not there. Are we there yet? No. We let good or great keep us from going for the extraordinary. At some point, again, we settle for what is, because it's not bad. But if you have your eye on what's extraordinary, you keep going and you achieve it. we compare ourselves. This is a big one. What keeps us from abundantly achieving is that we compare ourselves to others and find someone whose accomplishments make ours seem insignificant. Let me tell you what, it happens to me. The automatic thoughts that come to my head every time I put out a video, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, wow, that was well received. It was like 30 people interacted with it. And then I'm like, oh, Jay Shetty put a thing out, or I don't know, Dr. Chopra, Deepak Chopra did a yoga pose and it was 85,000 likes in the first 3 seconds. I'm like, my little thing here, video, is not making a difference for anybody. Why am I even doing this? Well, in fact, you know what? It made a difference for one person. That's success for that person. That's achievement relative to what I wanted to accomplish. You see? So for me, it's like, look, if I compare myself to somebody else, there's always somebody else who has more, is doing more than me. And that keeps me from abundantly achieving, because I never have the sensation and the feeling that I've achieved anything, because I'm a complete failure compared to somebody else. And we have a scarcity mentality. That's the other thing, is if you feel like there's only so much to go around, and if somebody wins, then that's less for you, that robs you of your feeling of abundantly achieving. When in fact, if you are a giver, I coach fellow leadership speakers all the time. I mean, people are reaching out to me all the time. Hey, you seem to have a successful business. How did you do it? And you did it in a short period of time. Hey, why don't we set up a call? And I share all of my secrets with them. Why? Because I'm not afraid that they're going to take my business away. Yeah, they're doing some similar work to what I am, but you know what? We're going to make the pie bigger instead of making sure that my part of the pie is bigger than yours. And finally, we hold on to our old ways. Sometimes on our way to accomplishing something really huge, because we hold on to some of our old habits and our old ways of being, we're still not feeling like we have accomplished that. So those are just a few things, and actually there's a blog post on this, and I'm going to ask Nassim to put the link in the chat box for you all if you want to download it, if you want to check it out. But spend some time with it and see which one of those really resonate with you and what's holding you back. Okay? So so again, I'm really happy to address your comments and questions. Anything you want to say, please put it in a chat box. But there are a couple of other things that I just want to share with you before we wrap up. Okay? So I want to talk to you about this community that we're creating, and I'd like to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain, if you will, to make sure that, we've talked about on the court, and I'd like to share a little bit more detail with you so you know what it's all about, okay? So if you'll just, again, if you have any other questions or comments, we'll come to those, but we're gonna dig into this a little bit. Let me tell you what really triggered this for me. I mentioned about the value of community, right? Because when I do my leadership Academy sessions, almost forgot the name, Leadership Academy. I've only been doing them for like 14 years. So when I do my Leadership Academy sessions, where we have about 8 to 10 people picking a project and going through a process for about 3.5 months, what happens is not only we deliver extraordinary results, that they deliver extraordinary results, but they begin to relate to themselves as a leader. But the most wonderful thing that happens is the spirit of community. Some of these communities who have been going through the session together years ago are still getting together for lunch once a month, and they have this sense of community. So whenever I've gone to some place, I've given a speech or done a workshop, they've always asked me, hey, what else can we do to keep people engaged and all of that? So that, combined with the fact that not everybody has the means or the opportunity to bring me in, really caused us several months ago to design this community that we are offering right now. And so the way this works is that we have essentially 5 stages that you could come into as a leader. And so these stages, we've called them rookie and team player, I have to think, rookie, team player, star player, MVP, and legend. So you get to self-select which one of these you come into, and you self-select and self-declare that, hey, I'm a rookie at leadership, or I'm a team player, but I want to be a star player, wherever you are. And by the way, a rookie is not somebody who has not had any leadership experience. Maybe you've had some leadership experience, but now you're faced with a greater responsibility and you feel like you're not equipped. And so you can come in at any of these stages based on your own declaration. And for each stage, we have some material, some webinars and videos and posts and things like that. We don't inundate you. We have been very selective in getting real clear what we need to serve to each of these folks coming in at this particular stage. Okay, so when you come into the community, you have access to not only that stuff from your own stage, but you also have access to others. And then what happens is on a weekly basis, you receive something from us. You will have exclusive access to interviews that we do, to webinars, blog posts, live sessions such as this one, and all kinds of different things that we're going to do, group coaching sessions. So we do this every single week. So 52 times during the year, you have access to those. And by the way, you have 24/7 access to the community. It's kind of like any group on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. You have access to the entire community, but just as importantly, those people who've declared themselves to be in your stage, you get to talk with them and say, hey, how about this, how about this? And so there's a lot of sharing, and I will interject ideas within each of those. And I can tell you, I'm so excited about this. I can see myself spending hours and hours every week on this, because what I plan to do is once we launch that thing on the Court Leadership at onthecourtleadership.com, I'm going to channel a lot of my effort into that. So basically what happens then, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that we set this up so that basically anybody who wanted to do it could afford it. And so and you'll get the particulars. If you have not signed up for the wait list at onthecourtleadership.com, please do that, and we'll send you a link in the chat as well. But if you do that, then you'll receive basically some information from us. And our intention is, before we launch this in a few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to make it available to what we call the founding members. And the founding members are kind of our small circle of people who have been on our book studies and things like that. So if you sign up, you're not obligated to be part of that, but at least you'll get the opportunity to do that. And the way we're going to price this is that essentially for 52 weeks of access to this kind of thing, as well as 24/7 access to that community that I'm going to be interfacing with and all of that is essentially going to cost for an entire year less than 2 hours of coaching time costs with me. So for less than 2 hours of the price of 2 hours of coaching with me, you'll get access to that entire thing. So this is why we're so excited about it, because we know that this is something that a lot of people have already expressed interest in. This is going to be a global thing where we're going to have access to a lot of people who may not be able to come in physically, or have me come in and that sort of thing. So anyway, I wanted to do that. Just wanted to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and share with you what this thing is all about and what we're so excited about it. And if you want to know more about it, let us know. But certainly get on that wait list to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. Now, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to stop right here. And I want to again express my heartfelt thanks to all of you, whether you made one session or 6 sessions, especially if you've been through all of these or at least watched the videos and you're here today during our bonus session. I cannot tell you what an uplifting experience this has been for me. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for you to be interested enough in this message to participate. So I'm going to stop right here. We've got a couple of minutes. And again, as always, I'll hang around for a bit longer as well if you want. But if there are any comments or questions, anything that you want to say in the chat box, or if you want to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. And we'll take as many of those as we can until 12 o'clock. And at that point, again, I'll hang around and see if there's any